So question number 1 of interest rate risk management is on FRA hedging. Okay, hedging through FRA. And we know that institute is providing wrong solution in this area, FRA hedging, but you got to follow the institute. So let us discuss it nicely so that we don't make a mistake and don't lose our marks. P Limited is contemplating to borrow an amount of 50 crores for a period of 3 months in the coming 6 months from now. Perfect. So after 6 months, we'll borrow for 3 months. Okay. We are afraid of interest rate rising. We should buy a 6 into 9 FRA. Okay. 6 into 9 FRA. The current rate of interest is 8%. I think it's irrelevant, but it may go up in 6 months time. Yes, we are afraid of rising interest rate. The company wants to hedge itself against the likely increase in interest rate. Company's bankers quoted an FRA. Now this is the 6 into 9 FRA at 8.3%. So logically, when we enter into the FRA, it's a contract to borrow after 6 months for 3 months at 8.3%. So logically, by definition, no matter whatever the rate be after 6 months, our effective cost of borrowing should be 8.3%. You know the answer beforehand. So they are writing compute the effect of the FRA, which means separately give us the profit or loss on FRA and the actual rate of interest cost to the company if the actual rate of interest under consideration happens to be 8.6% case 1, 7.8% case 2. Okay. So how will we solve the sum? In case 1, where the rate rises to 8.6%, we bought FRA 8.3% F plus, the rate rises to 8.6, so we gain. How much do we gain? We gain the difference, the present value of that. So 8.6 minus 8.3, that is 0.3% of 50 crores into 3 by 12. 0.3% of 50 crores into 3 by 12, that is the amount we gain. Okay. However, they calculate the present value. So 0.3% of 50 crore into 3 by 12 divided by 1 plus the market rate, 0.086 by 4. I repeat, 8.6 minus 8.3, that is 0.3% of 50 crores into 3 by 12 divided by 1 plus the market rate, that is 0.086 by 4. So this is the profit on FRA that the bank will give us. Correct. Okay. Now they are saying that we will borrow at the market rate, correct, at 8.6%. So you find out the interest cost, 8.6% of 50 crores into 3 by 12. 8.6% of 50 crores into 3 by 12. But this interest is standing at the 9th point of time. And the present value of the FRA profit that we calculated at the 6th point of time. So logically, that profit on FRA should be compounded and sent 3 months hence by remultiplying it by 1 plus 0.086 by 4. They have not done that. So what they have done, they just calculated the profit of on FRA, which I am repeating, 8.6 minus 8.3, that is 0.3% of 50 crores into 3 by 12 divided by 1 plus 0.086 by 4. That they have calculated. Then they have calculated the interest cost, which is 8.6% of 50 crores into 3 by 12. Then they have deducted both of them because one is a cost, the other is a profit, and they found out the net cost, and the net cost divided by 50 crores into 100 into 12 by 3. That's coming to 8.31%. Now this solution is wrong, but rectify it. Okay. Similarly, if the rate becomes 7.8, we lose on the FRA. How much do we lose? 8.3 minus 7.8, that is 0.5% of 50 crores into 3 by 12 divided by 1 plus market rate, that is 0.078 divided by 4. Okay, so you calculate the loss and you calculate the interest cost, that is 7.8% of 50 crores into 3 by 12. Now add both of them up, and whatever you get, that figure divided by 50 crores into 100 into 12 by 3. That comes to 8.29%. It's totally wrong answer, but that's what you got to reproduce. So question number 2 of interest rate risk management is on the currency of borrowing and FRA pricing. There is a misprinting in the 3-month forward ask rate. You can see it's given 36 point percentage. But luckily the 3-month forward rate is of no use. So leave it. Okay, don't bother about it. It's given an Indian company obtains the following quote: spot rate, 3-month forward rate, 6-month forward rate. Company needs dollar funds for 6 months. It's clearly given the company needs dollar funds for 6 months. Determine whether the company should borrow in dollar or rupee. Interest rates are 3 months, 6 months. Okay. Also determine what should be the rate of interest after 3 months to make the company indifferent between 3-month borrowing and 6-month borrowing. In case of rupee borrowing, dollar borrowing. So the second part is FRA pricing. The first part is we have to borrow dollars for 6 months. So which currency should we borrow? Should we borrow in rupee or in dollars? Towards the end, it's given note for the purpose of calculation. You can take the units of dollar and rupee as 100 each. Very good. So that means they have given us the amount to be borrowed. How much? $100. So Alternative 1, borrow $100. So if we borrow $100, the interest rate for 6 months is 5.5%. So how much do we have to repay after 6 months? $100 plus 5.5% of 100 into half, which is 102.75. Correct. So there will be an outflow of 102.75 after 6 months. So we cover it forward at 36.4. So 102.75 into 36.4. Use your calci. 102.75 into 36.4. Now that is coming to 3740.1. 3740.1. Alternative 2, let's borrow rupee. How much rupee? Since we required $100, so if we don't borrow $100, we will buy $100 from the market. If you don't borrow, you will buy, no? Because you need $100. At 36.1, you will buy. So you need 100 into 36.1, that is 3610 rupee. So amount borrowed will be 3610. Do not be confused. Why have you used the ask rate? We are thinking that we will borrow rupee and buy dollar. So to buy $100, you will require 100 into 36.1. That is 3610 rupees. We will borrow 3610 rupee at what rate? At the 6-month rupee interest rate of 11.5%. So the rupee outflow will be 3610 plus 11.5% of 3610 into half. That comes to around 3817.58. 3817. Over there we got 3740. So obviously dollar borrowing is cheaper. We recommend dollar borrowing. That's the first part of the answer. In the second part, we have to find out the 3-month interest rate after 3 months. So do you remember FRA pricing? Okay, the bigger periodic factor by the smaller periodic factor, the whole thing minus 1, the whole into 12 by gap. Bigger periodic factor by the smaller periodic factor, the whole thing minus 1, the whole into 12 by gap. So if you look at the dollar thing, the bigger periodic factor 5.5% will be 1 plus 0.055 by 2. And the smaller periodic factor 6% will be 1 plus 0.06 by 2 by 4. That means if you want it more precisely, 5.5% for 6 months is 2.75%. So the bigger periodic factor is 1.0275 and 6% for 3 months is 1.5%. So 1.015. So 1.0275 divided by 1.015, the whole thing minus 1, the whole into 12 by 3. 1.0275 divided by 1.015, the whole thing minus 1, the whole into 12 by 3 into 100. Okay. And you can calculate what it's coming to. 1.0275 divided by 1.015, the whole thing minus 1, the whole into 100 into 12 by 3, that's coming to 4.93%, okay, annual, 4.93%. The same thing you can do for rupee thing. For rupee, the 6-month interest rate is 11.5%. So that becomes periodic 11.5 by 2. That becomes periodic 11.5 by 2, which is 5.75. And the 3-month interest rate for rupee is 12%. That is 12 by 4 equal to 3%. So we have 5.75% and 3%. 1.0575 divided by 1.03. 1.0575 divided by 1.03. The whole thing minus 1. The whole into 12 by 3. The whole into 100. That comes to 10.68%. 10.68%. So this is very fast. You got to command figures or you write and do hole na. What is the issue? It has been done in class beautifully. So when do we do the power thing? When do we do divide? In FRA, LIBOR is a simple interest rate. We always do divide. We never do power. In the bond chapter, where we play with 2 month, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year rates, there we do 1 plus something to the power 4 divided by 1 plus something to the power 3 minus 1. Okay. So this is question number 3 of interest rate risk management. This is not a new sum. It is like a 8-year-old sum. It has already been done in class. Still, I would like to go through the same so that if there is a friction in your mind how to do 2-party swap sum, that to currency, the friction goes away. Okay, so I am just trying to overhedge myself and yourself by doing this sum. So A and B intend to borrow $2 lakh and $2 lakh in yen respectively. So respectively word means that A wants to borrow $2 lakh. So if you know how a swap works, A wants to borrow 2 lakhs means A will not borrow 2 lakhs dollars. B wants to borrow yen. Okay, that means B will not borrow yen, B will borrow dollars. So A will borrow yen, B will borrow dollars. Sure, 100%. For a time horizon of 1 year. The prevalent interest rates as follows. So we are given this interest rate table. You know what I do. When the interest rate table is given to me, I prepare the table again. I underline what they want to do. So for example, in A, I will underline 9%. I will underline in B 8%. This is what they want to do. And then I will put a star on 5% and 10%. Correct? On 5%, 10%. So A should borrow yen 2 lakh into 120 is the exchange rate, 240 lakh yen, and B should borrow $2 lakh at 10%. So he'll borrow yen, A will borrow yen, 240 lakhs at 5%, B will borrow $2 lakh at 10%. That's against their desire. Now I'm reading further. They entered into a currency swap in which it is agreed that B will pay A 1% over the yen loan rate which the latter is paying. So A is paying 5% on the yen loan. So B will pay to A how much? 6%, correct? Whereas A will reimburse B to the extent of 9%. So A will pay B 9%. Perfect. Keeping the exchange rate invariant, quantify the opportunity gain or loss component of the ultimate outcome resulting from the designed currency swap. Okay, perfect. So if you look at this graph which is given to you, in this graph, A has borrowed 5% on 240 lakh yen he has to pay. B has borrowed $2 lakh, he has to pay 10%, that's step 1. Now B is paying to A 5 plus 1, that is 6% on yen 240 lakhs, while A is paying to B 9% on dollars 10 lakh. Perfect. So effective cost of A comes to what? Effective cost of A comes to 8% on dollars 2 lakh, while effective cost of B comes to 7% on yen 240 lakhs. So if you look at the effective cost, 8% on dollars 2 lakh, whereas what was the underlined part of A would have borrowed dollar at 9%, but the effective cost is 8%. So how much is A gaining? 1% on dollars 2 lakh, that is $2,000. That's the answer. Now B, its effective cost is 7% on yen 240 lakhs. Whereas what would have been its cost had B borrowed yen itself, 8%. So instead of 8, 7%, 1% benefit. So 1% of yen 240 lakhs, that is yen 2,40,000, yen 2,40,000. So gain to A is dollars 2,000, gain to B is yen 2,40,000. Of course, you have to present it in the form that the institute presents. Okay, do follow the presentation of the institute. Thank you. So question number 4 is on FRA and interest rate guarantee. Interest rate guarantee is a call option on interest rate. Let's look at the question. We have done the sum in class. Two companies ABC and XYZ approach DEF Bank for FRA. Both companies want to borrow a sum of 100 crore after 2 years for a period of 1 year. Bank has calculated yield curve of both the companies as follows. So XYZ, the rates are given, ABC, the rates are given. Identify at least one reason for difference in the yield curve for the companies. So we can see that the ABC has a higher interest rate as compared to XYZ. That means ABC has a higher level of credit risk. So ABC has a lower credit rating, higher credit risk reflected by lower credit rating. Okay, that's the answer. Why ABC has a higher yield? Because it has higher credit risk, perhaps lower credit rating. Number 2, calculate the rate of interest DEF Bank would quote under 2 versus 3 FRA using the company's yield information. So you have to find out the yield of 2 into 3 FRA. Now usually in FRA, we are habituated not to use power. Okay, but then we have 6 month, 3 month, 9 month, all those rates are given. Here 2 year, 3 year rates are given. So we'll have to do just as we do in bond valuation. Okay, bigger factor by smaller factor minus 1. So for XYZ, 1.0448 cube divided by 1.042 square, the whole thing minus 1. May I repeat? 1.0448 cube divided by 1.042 square minus 1. That's coming to 5.04%. Okay, 5.04%. And for ABC, 1.0578 cube divided by 1.0548 square, the whole thing minus 1. I repeat, 1.0578 cube divide by 1.0548 square, the whole thing minus 1, that's coming to 6.38%. Okay, so the answer is 5.04% for XYZ, 6.38% for ABC. Third part, suppose bank offers interest rate guarantee, that means call option, for a premium of 0.1% of the amount of the loan. Calculate the interest payable by XYZ if interest rate in 2 years turns out to be this. So basically we are buying a call option. Okay, XYZ is buying a call option. That means a right to borrow, not an obligation to borrow. And FRA is a contract to borrow. That is right as well as obligation. You don't enjoy the downside in FRA. But in call option, you have the right to borrow. So if the rate falls, you will not exercise the call option and you will borrow from the market at a lower rate. But the problem is that they've not given the strike price. So the only way is that we will use the strike price as calculated as the FRA rate in second part. So what was the FRA rate we calculated for XYZ? We calculated the FRA rate for XYZ 5.04%. So we are assuming that we have a C plus at 5.04%. C plus at 5.04%. So in case 1, the rate is 4.5. So since the rate is lower, call option lapses. We will borrow from the market. So 100 crore into 4.5%, that is 4.5 crore, and we paid 0.41 crore, sorry, 0.1 crore premium. So 4.5 plus 0.1, 4.6 crore answer. And if case 2, if the rate becomes 5.5%, then the call option will be exercised. That means we have the right to borrow at 5.04. So we'll borrow at 5.04, not at 5.5. So our interest cost will be 5.04 crore plus 0.1 crore, 5.14 crore. Okay. Very easy, straightforward question. So once again, question number 5 is a two-party swap, currency swap. But this question we had not done in class as far as I remember. Okay, anyway, it's straightforward. Okay, just remember that whatever a person wants to borrow, he will not borrow that. He'll borrow the ulta. Okay, that's what happens in a swap. IB, an Indian firm, has its subsidiary in Japan. Zaki, a Japanese firm, has its subsidiary in India. Face the following rates. Rates are given. Zaki wishes to borrow rupee loan. So what's the cost of Zaki rupee loan? BPLR plus 2.5% underline. While IB wishes to borrow JPY at a fixed rate. So IB, JPY 2%. So I've underlined 2%, I've underlined BPLR plus 2.5%. The remaining 2 I'll put a star. Okay, perfect. The amount of loan required by both the firms is same at the current exchange rate. They have not even given the exchange rate. So even if you have a feeling towards currency, it'll go away. A financial institution may arrange a swap and requires 25 basis point as commission. Perfect. Gain, if any, is to be shared equally by both the firms. Whether a swap can be arranged by which may be beneficial for both the firms? Yes, because the 2 stars that you have given, like if IB borrows INR floating BPLR plus 0.5 and Zaki borrows JPY fixed 2.25, the total cost will be BPLR plus 2.75. Whereas if they borrow their own, total cost is coming to BPLR plus 4.5. That means there is a scope of improving 1.75%, out of which 0.25% shall be enjoyed by the intermediate bank. So 1.5% shall be enjoyed by these two. That is 0.75% each. Okay, should I repeat? See, once again go to the table. Zaki wants to borrow INR floating. You have underlined BPLR plus 2.5. If you're not underlining, I can't explain to you. IB wants to borrow JPY fixed. So I will underline 2%. The remaining to use star. So we have starred BPLR plus 0.5% and 2.25%. So effective cost without the swap is BPLR plus 2.5 plus 2. That is BPLR plus 4.5. Effective cost with the swap is BPLR plus 0.5 plus 2.25, which is BPLR plus 2.75. So the benefit of the swap is 1.75%, out of which 0.25% shall be enjoyed by the intermediate bank. So 1.5% shall remain for the two companies to be shared equally. So 0.75% each. So the effective cost for IB shall be, उसका underline क्या था? उसका underline was 2%. So 2% minus 0.75, which is 1.25% gain. 1.25% gain. And Zaki, what was the underline? BPLR plus 2.5 minus 0.75. So BPLR plus 1.75. BPLR plus 1.75 INR is the cost to Zaki, and for IB the cost is 1.25%. Okay, you may check the answer and please follow the presentation of the institute. So question number 6 of IRRM. Now this sum is from overnight index swap, plain vanilla overnight index swap. In fact, they are giving you marks for the name of it. Look at the first part of the sum. Nature of the swap arrangement. So that is plain vanilla OIS, overnight index swap, in which one leg is MIBOR and the other leg is fixed. And MIBOR is daily compounded. Okay, I hope you remember the sum we had done in the class. Derivative bank entered into a swap arrangement on a notional principal of 10 crores and agreed to receive MIBOR overnight for a fixed payment. So we'll receive MIBOR, we'll pay fixed. The swap was entered on Monday 19th August, was to commence on 20th August 2019 for a period of 7 days. So Tuesday to Monday. The MIBOR rates are given. Obviously, the second last rate, 8.15%, is the rate on Saturday, which is also applicable for Sunday because Sunday is a holiday. A fixed rate of interest is 8%. 8%, then evaluate the nature of the swap arrangement. I told you the nature of the swap arrangement is the name of the swap, that is plain vanilla OIS, overnight index swap. And what's the second part? The second part is net settlement amount. Okay, and some notes are given. Sunday is a holiday, round of the rupees, consider 365 days in a year. Okay, so the sum is very, very simple. What we will do is that first I'm explaining to you. We will, for example, calculate 8.15% of 10 crores. That's the first day's interest into 1 by 365. 8.15% of 10 crores into 1 by 365. You calculate that and you add that to 10 crore. The next day, 7.98% of that into 1 by 365. You calculate that, add that. So it's like daily compounded. When you come to Saturday, you will do 8.15% of the amount into 2 by 365. Okay, and then you will add and in the last day. So that way you will get the interest for all the 7 days. You get the total floating interest, and the fixed interest is obviously 8% of the 10 crore into 7 by 365. And then you calculate the net settlement amount. So I'm not going to the solution. It's very simple. I remember the sum that we had done in class. In that case, the fixed rate was missing and the net settlement amount was given. Okay, so that was in fact one step higher. This is easier. Please ensure you get it right if it comes in the exam.